Dr. Ethan Voss had always loved quiet moments, but on the Interstellar Research Station, silence was a rare treasure. The station hummed with life, aliens of every shape and color moving through corridors, lights blinking on control panels, the faint scent of recycled air lingering everywhere. Ethan's lab was tucked away in one of the quieter wings, a place where he could examine samples and tinker with equipment without interruption. Today, though, even this sanctuary felt restless. Something about the station was different, though he couldn't place it. Perhaps it was the way the distant stars glittered unusually bright outside the large observation window, or maybe it was simply that he had too much time to think. As he walked through the hallway, he noticed a small, metallic object lying partially hidden under a bench. His curiosity pulled him down to pick it up. It was a data pad, slightly scratched but intact. He expected it to be just another research report or an old maintenance log. He brushed off the dust and pressed a button. A soft blue glow filled the room and a stream of text appeared. The words were unfamiliar at first, a combination of symbols and characters he hadn't seen before. Then, as his translator hummed quietly, the text reshaped itself into understandable English. Ethan froze. The data pad wasn't a report. It was a diary. The diary belonged to Lyra, a young alien girl from Zephyria, a planet on the other side of the galaxy. Her handwriting, careful and precise, flowing in patterns he had never seen, filled the pages with a voice so innocent and earnest that it drew him in immediately. He didn't mean to intrude. He didn't know it was personal. But as he read, he found himself completely absorbed. Lyra's entries spoke of ordinary things at first, her studies, her family, her friends. Yet as Ethan turned the pages, he noticed something extraordinary. Her dreams were not ordinary at all. She wrote about a device she hoped to create, something that would allow beings from different worlds to understand each other completely, not just their words, but their feelings and experiences. She described the device in fragments, almost like sketches in words. "If I can share what I feel, then maybe they will know me," one entry read. Another said, "It is hard to explain, but I want to see the world as they do, and I want them to see my world too." Ethan's fingers lingered over the words, and he felt a strange thrill. Such an idea was impossible, or at least impossible by conventional standards. He put the pad down for a moment and stared out of the window at the stars. The thought of trying to create what Lyra dreamed of seemed absurd, yet the spark of excitement burned in him. Humans had a way of seeing things differently, of trying when others wouldn't. Ethan could feel the challenge stirring inside him. He wondered, not for the first time, why humans always seemed drawn to the impossible. Returning to the diary, he noticed another entry that made him pause. "The council says I am too young to understand. They do not see the need for connection, only efficiency. But if I fail to try, then who will?" Her words resonated in him. Humans had often faced the same doubt when tackling something no one else believed in. He smiled faintly, realizing that despite being light years apart, he and Lyra shared that stubborn hope. Over the next few days, Ethan became consumed with the diary. He would wake early to read more entries, skipping breakfast, ignoring messages from colleagues, entirely absorbed in Lyra's thoughts. She spoke of planets she had never visited, of creatures he had never seen, and of ideas so far beyond her young mind that he wondered if she truly grasped their potential. But that, he realized, was the beauty of it. Dreams weren't limited by knowledge. They were fueled by imagination. Lyra wrote about her world in vivid colors, describing skies that shifted from violet to green, rivers that glowed faintly in the dark, and mountains that hummed with life. She had a curiosity that rivaled his own, and a sense of wonder that made even the hum of the station's machinery feel dull in comparison. Ethan laughed quietly to himself, thinking that if Lyra could one day build her device, the galaxy might see things as she did, and humans could help her do it. It wasn't just curiosity that drew him in. Ethan felt a protective instinct. Lyra's world seemed fragile, her hopes delicate, and yet there was courage in every line she wrote. Courage that made him realize he could not merely read her diary and leave it at that. Something inside him, a mixture of respect, excitement, and stubborn human determination, told him he could help. He could take her dream, however impossible it seemed, and attempt to make it real. He began small. Using the station's lab, he gathered materials that might help replicate the concepts she described. Some devices were alien in design, others human-made, but all seemed like puzzle pieces. As he worked, he thought of Lyra sitting at her desk, scribbling her ideas, hoping that one day someone would understand. It was as if her imagination had reached across the stars and touched him directly. Other scientists noticed the change in him. Ethan, usually methodical and calm, was now restless, almost frantic at times. He refused to explain the source of his obsession, smiling vaguely when asked. "I found something fascinating," he would say, and nothing more. His human colleagues, many of whom had grown accustomed to alien skepticism, shrugged and moved on. Only a few noticed the glimmer of something extraordinary in his eyes, a spark that humans often carried when facing challenges far beyond expectation. Late one night, Ethan stayed in the lab, assembling a prototype device using a combination of alien circuitry and human engineering. His hands moved with precision, guided partly by his knowledge and partly by instinct. Lyra's diary lay open nearby, its glowing pages reflecting in his glasses. Each line of hers was a whisper, a guide, and an inspiration. She wrote, "I want to see not only with my eyes but with my heart." And Ethan, reading those words, realized that this was the essence of the challenge. It wasn't about mechanics or circuits alone. It was about understanding, empathy, and creativity, the very traits humans excelled at. As the days passed, Ethan began testing small parts of the device. The results were inconsistent at first. Sometimes it would translate simple emotions like joy or surprise across alien and human interfaces. Other times it produced confusing feedback, a tangle of signals that made his head spin. Yet he persisted. Failure, he knew, was simply part of creation. Each mistake brought new insight, and humans, more than any other species, had a knack for turning setbacks into breakthroughs. One evening, exhausted but exhilarated, Ethan paused and leaned back in his chair. The station outside was quiet, the stars sparkling like distant beacons of hope. He realized that he had not only begun to work toward Lyra's dream, but in doing so, he had also rediscovered something within himself, a sense of purpose, of possibility. It was a reminder that humans, even in a galaxy full of advanced species, had a unique gift: the courage to dream, the determination to try, and the creativity to make the impossible real. Ethan smiled at the diary one last time that night. Lyra's words had reached him in a way that no report, no lecture, and no protocol ever could. She had dreamed beyond limits, and now, through him, her dream had a chance. He whispered softly, "We'll make it happen, Lyra, I promise." The journey ahead would be long and uncertain, filled with obstacles he could not yet imagine. Yet, just as Lyra had believed in the impossible, so too did he. And in that shared belief, across the gulf of light years, a spark had been ignited, one that would soon grow into something neither human nor alien could foresee. As he shut the lab's lights and left for the night, Ethan glanced back at the diary one last time. Its soft glow seemed to pulse faintly, as if acknowledging him. Somewhere across the stars, a young alien girl had dreamed a dream so big that it could change everything. And now, for the first time, a human had begun to turn that dream into reality. Ethan Voss knew from the start that turning Lyra's dream into something real would not be easy. The first small successes from his early tests had given him hope, but hope alone could not power a device meant to connect minds across species. The deeper he went, the more complex the challenge became. Every alien species processed thoughts, emotions, and memories in different ways. Some thought in images, others in sound patterns, and some even used chemical signals that humans could barely understand. The research station itself seemed to sense his struggle. Its lights flickered softly as he worked late into the nights, surrounded by floating holograms and scattered tools. Ethan moved carefully, his face tired but focused. He had stopped counting how many hours he spent in the lab. Time no longer mattered. Only progress did. Lyra's diary remained open beside him, its glowing screen filled with her careful words. He often read the same entries again and again, not just for ideas, but for motivation. One entry stayed in his mind more than the others. "If they could feel what I feel for just one moment," she had written, "they would not fear us anymore." Understanding was considered risky. Efficiency was safer. But humans had never chosen the safe path when the greater good was at stake. As Ethan worked, he began combining human neural interface technology with alien empathy crystals, rare components used mostly for ceremonial purposes. Many aliens believed these crystals carried emotional memory, though no one had ever tried to study them scientifically. Ethan didn't see them as sacred objects or mysterious relics. To him, they were data storage, just in a form science hadn't fully unlocked yet. That way of thinking often frustrated his alien colleagues. One afternoon, a tall, silver-skinned scientist named Kale entered Ethan's lab without warning. Kale belonged to a species known for logic and strict order. His eyes scanned the messy workspace with clear disapproval. "You are violating 3 research protocols," Kale said calmly, "and possibly several cultural boundaries." Kale stepped closer, observing the half-built device floating between them. "This project has not been approved. Emotional interface research was suspended years ago. Or it can create understanding, peace, cooperation." That small interaction reminded Ethan of the risks he was taking. If the council decided his work was too dangerous, they could shut him down at any moment. So he worked faster, trusting his instincts. Humans were good at adapting under pressure. It was one of their greatest strengths. The first real test came sooner than expected. Using a simple interface connected to his own neural implant, Ethan activated a limited emotional transfer. He chose something small and safe, curiosity. The device hummed softly, lights shifting from blue to green. For a brief moment, Ethan felt something strange. Not pain, not confusion, just a gentle expansion of awareness, like seeing the world slightly wider than before. The device worked. It wasn't perfect. The sensation faded quickly and the data logs showed unstable patterns. But it was real. A human mind had connected to a non-human emotional structure without harm. Ethan laughed out loud, the sound echoing through the empty lab. He recorded everything carefully, knowing that proof would be his strongest defense if questioned. But deep inside, he knew this was no longer just an experiment. It was a promise to Lyra and to a future that could be better than the present. As progress continued, Ethan noticed something unexpected. The device didn't just translate emotions, it amplified empathy. When he tested it again, this time sharing a memory of standing under Earth's open sky, he felt a response from the empathy crystal. It was faint, but it was there, like another presence listening. He realized then that Lyra's dream was even greater than he had first understood. She hadn't imagined a simple translator. She had imagined connection, real connection. Meanwhile, far away on Zephyria, Lyra felt restless. She didn't know why. She would sit at her desk, staring at her unfinished designs, feeling as though something important was happening beyond her reach. Her people had discouraged her from continuing her work. They told her she was too young, too idealistic. Still, she couldn't let go of the feeling that her dream mattered. One night, she wrote in her diary again, unaware that her words were now guiding someone across the galaxy. "Sometimes I feel like my thoughts are not just mine," she wrote, "like they are traveling somewhere I cannot see." As the device neared completion, opposition grew stronger. The council summoned Ethan for a formal review. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Their faces showed skepticism, concern, and curiosity in equal measure. Ethan stood alone in the center, calm but determined. "You have been conducting unauthorized research," one council member said. "Explain yourself." "It allows beings to feel what others feel for a moment, enough to understand." Together. Back in the lab, Ethan continued refining the device. He added safeguards, limits, and manual controls. He wanted this to be safe, not just successful. Humans had learned, often the hard way, that power without care led to disaster. Late one night, as the station slept, Ethan activated the device again. This time, something unexpected happened. The empathy crystal glowed brighter than ever before, responding with a clear, stable signal. Data flooded his screen, forming patterns he had never seen. Then, for a brief moment, Ethan felt it. Another presence. Gentle, curious, hopeful. He gasped, pulling back instinctively. The connection broke and the lab fell silent. Ethan's heart raced as he reviewed the data. The signal didn't match any known species on the station. It came from Zephyria. Lyra sat up suddenly in her room, her heart pounding. She didn't know why tears filled her eyes. She felt warmth, curiosity, and a strange sense of recognition, as if someone had listened to her dream and answered. Ethan stared at the screen, hands shaking. He hadn't just translated emotion. He had reached across space. The realization hit him with full force. This device could change everything: communication, diplomacy, even the way species saw each other. And it all began with a young alien girl's dream and a human's refusal to ignore it. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhausted and overwhelmed, but smiling. The hardest part was still ahead, but now he knew something for certain. Lyra's dream was real, and the galaxy was not ready for what humans were about to give it. Ethan Voss could hardly believe what had just happened. The connection he had glimpsed with Lyra was no longer theoretical, it was real. Somewhere across the galaxy, on a planet filled with glowing rivers and shifting skies, a young alien girl had felt his presence, and he had felt hers. The thought made his heart race. For months, he had worked tirelessly in the lab, tinkering, testing, and dreaming alongside Lyra's diary. But now the dream had become tangible, alive, and breathtaking. The next morning, Ethan awoke early, more alert than he had been in weeks. He could not wait to begin testing the device again. The first connection had been brief, unplanned, and imperfect. There were risks, certainly. The Council's observers would be watching closely, and yet Ethan could not ignore the calling. Humans were known for pushing limits when curiosity and hope aligned. He approached the lab with a mixture of excitement and caution. He ran multiple safety checks before activating the device. This time, he had designed a controlled interface that would allow him to see and interact with the other presence safely. His hands moved quickly but carefully, sliding the alien empathy crystals into place, calibrating the neural interface, and linking his systems to the station's communication arrays. As the device powered up, soft hums filled the lab. The glowing crystals pulsed rhythmically, casting gentle reflections on Ethan's face. The screen flickered, displaying complex data streams and patterns. Ethan adjusted the settings, holding his breath. Then it happened. The same warm presence returned, stronger and clearer than before. He could sense curiosity and wonder, tinged with uncertainty and hope. Lyra's thoughts were reaching him directly, not just words, not just images, but emotions, intentions, and dreams. Ethan whispered softly, "Lyra, can you feel me?" In that instant, he understood the true power of her dream. Communication across species had never been about words alone. It had always been about empathy, connection, and understanding. The device he had created allowed that possibility, and humans, with their unique curiosity and determination, had made it real. Over the next several days, Ethan and Lyra continued their experiments cautiously. They sent thoughts, feelings, and images across light years. Lyra showed Ethan her home, forests that shimmered under twin moons, rivers that glowed with natural luminescence, and mountains that seemed alive, humming faintly with energy. Ethan shared images of Earth, oceans, deserts, and forests full of life. They laughed together in shared moments of joy, marveled at the beauty of each other's worlds, and celebrated discoveries too complex for words alone. But the breakthrough did not stay hidden for long. The Council's observers monitored the lab and noticed the unprecedented activity. A meeting was convened to discuss the implications of Ethan's work. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber. Skepticism was heavy in the air. Many had been cautious of human recklessness, and the Council was worried about potential misuse of the device. Ethan stood before them, calm but resolute. He presented not only his data but also the emotional results, patterns of empathy that were measurable, repeatable, and safe. "This device does not control thoughts," he explained. "It allows understanding. It allows connection. We can see the galaxy as others see it. We can feel what others feel. We can prevent conflict before it begins, simply by understanding each other. Any tool can be misused, but knowledge, when guided by responsibility and empathy, can prevent harm. Humans have always faced fear of the unknown, yet we explore, create, and connect. We have learned that progress requires courage." Ethan waited patiently, answering questions with clarity and honesty. Finally, Kale spoke. "The human has demonstrated not only technical skill but restraint and insight. Fear has limited our species for too long. Perhaps this is an opportunity." But there was permission to continue under supervision. That was enough. Ethan returned to his lab, a sense of relief washing over him. He had passed the first test, not just of technology, but of trust. In the lab, he activated the device once more. This time, he allowed Lyra to take the lead. She shared her latest ideas for improving the interface, and Ethan realized that even across galaxies, collaboration could thrive. They refined the device together, testing new ways to translate complex emotions like hope, courage, and curiosity. Each session brought them closer, not only as collaborators but as friends. Lyra's dream was growing bigger with each day. She had envisioned a future where different species could communicate freely, share experiences, and resolve conflicts through empathy. Now, with Ethan's help, that dream was no longer imaginary. The galaxy was slowly becoming more connected. Ethan thought about the implications. The device could prevent misunderstandings that led to wars. It could foster alliances, strengthen trade, and build trust where there had been only suspicion. The galaxy was full of civilizations, many powerful, many proud, many wary of one another. Humans had been small and underestimated, yet here they were, creating the tool that could unite worlds. That, Ethan realized, was the essence of being human: courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable desire to connect. As weeks passed, the device was tested with other volunteers. Humans and aliens alike participated in controlled trials. Each session revealed new possibilities. A Zephyrian diplomat could finally understand the worries of a human trade delegate. A Coran scientist could feel the excitement of a researcher on Earth. Misunderstandings that had lasted generations were beginning to dissolve in shared experiences. The first public demonstration was planned on the station's central observation deck. Representatives from dozens of planets were present, including skeptics who had watched Ethan's work with doubt. Ethan and Lyra coordinated, ensuring safety and clarity. When the demonstration began, the device hummed softly. Volunteers were connected, and a wave of shared emotions spread through the room. Gasps of awe followed as participants felt not only each other's thoughts, but their hopes, fears, and joys. A human child smiled at a Zephyrian elder, and the elder's eyes glimmered with tears of recognition. A trade negotiation that had been tense moments before ended in laughter and mutual understanding. Ethan watched quietly, knowing this was just the beginning. Lyra's dream had become reality, and the galaxy was witnessing the first true bridge between species. After the demonstration, Ethan returned to the lab with Lyra. The connection between them was steady now, clear and strong. Lyra sent him a thought full of wonder, joy, and gratitude. Ethan responded with warmth, pride, and encouragement. They didn't need words. The device translated everything perfectly. "You've done more than I imagined," Lyra communicated. Ethan smiled. "No," he sent back. "You imagined more than I could ever dream. I just helped make it happen." News of the device spread quickly. Messages of hope, curiosity, and wonder traveled faster than any formal announcement could. Species previously hostile to one another began seeking dialogue, eager to experience this new form of connection. Ethan knew there would be challenges ahead: misuse, technical failures, and political hurdles. But he also knew humans had always faced obstacles and found a way forward. Lyra's planet, Zephyria, was the first to respond. Her people, initially skeptical, had been moved by the clarity and safety of the device. They invited Ethan to visit in person. For the first time, a human would walk on her planet, guided by the very dream that had inspired it all. The journey to Zephyria was long, but Ethan's excitement never waned. He spent his time preparing, refining the device, and reviewing every detail in Lyra's diary. He realized that every line, every sketch, and every thought she had shared had led to this moment. Humans had turned imagination into reality, not through force or power, but through understanding, empathy, and determination. When he finally stepped onto Zephyria, he was greeted by landscapes that seemed impossible: glowing rivers, floating islands, and skies shifting in color like living paintings. Lyra was waiting, her eyes wide with wonder and joy. The diary, once a private record of dreams, had guided them both to this incredible meeting. They connected the device one last time, not across light years, but face to face. Ethan felt her thoughts, her excitement, and her pride. Lyra felt his determination, patience, and hope. For a moment, nothing else mattered. They had accomplished the impossible together. Ethan looked around, realizing the true significance of what they had done. The galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated worlds. It was a network of minds and hearts, ready to understand and cooperate. Humans had played a key role in making that possible, not through superiority, but through courage, creativity, and the refusal to ignore a dream, no matter how impossible it seemed. Lyra smiled at him. "We did it," she thought. Ethan smiled back. "No," he thought, "you did it, I just helped." And in that moment, humans were no longer just explorers. They were builders of bridges, creators of hope, and proof that courage and imagination could change the universe. And somewhere across the stars, the diary that had started it all rested quietly in the lab, its pages glowing softly, as if acknowledging that a dream had come true.